Clara's Adventure in the Village. Once upon a time, there was a curious and sweet girl living in the city. Her name was Clara. She lived in an apartment with big buildings and traffic lights. But this summer, she was excited because her family was going on vacation to their countryside house, far away from the city. Clara had only heard about the countryside in fairy tales and seen pictures of it. Now, going there and living there was both very intriguing and a bit scary for her. "Mom, what is the countryside like? Are there parks like in the city? Does the internet work at home?" Clara asked. Her mother smiled and said, "You'll see. The countryside is a whole different world. There are trees, fields, and animals there. Believe me, you're going to have a lot of fun." Clara wasn't sure exactly what to expect, but she was ready for the adventure. After a long journey, they arrived at the countryside. As soon as Clara got out of the car, she looked around. The sky wasn't gray like in the city. It was a clear blue. The trees were swaying as if dancing with the wind, and the flowers smelled wonderful. But something felt strange. There were no tall buildings around. "Mom, there are no apartment buildings here. Where are we going to stay?" she asked in surprise. Her mother laughed and said, "We're going to stay in that cute little house over there." Clara's eyes widened. The house was really small, but it had a charming chimney on the roof and a tiny swing in the garden. When they entered the house, Clara immediately ran to explore her room. But something surprised her. "Mom, there's no radiator or air conditioning here. How will we stay warm?" she asked. Her mother said, "There's a stove here, sweetie. We'll light it, and it will keep us warm and cook our meals." Clara didn't fully understand what a stove was, but her mother's smile made her feel safe. The first night in the countryside felt a bit strange. Clara had trouble falling asleep while listening to the crackling of the stove. Unlike the city, where streetlights lit up the roads, everything was dark here. "Mom, it's so quiet here. In the city, there were car sounds, but here I don't hear anything," she murmured. Her mother said, "This silence is the sound of peace, Clara. You'll get used to it over time." The next morning, Clara woke up early. When she stepped into the garden, she was amazed to see chickens and goats. "Mom, there are real chickens here. Are they ours?" she asked excitedly. Her mother said, "Yes, Clara. We have chickens and goats, too. Would you like to feed them today?" Clara was a little hesitant, but her mother standing by her side made her feel more comfortable. Watching the chickens run after the food was so much fun. As days passed, Clara began to notice that life in the countryside wasn't like life in the city. In the city, she woke up to the sound of an alarm, but here she woke up to the crowing of a rooster. "Mom, why is the rooster making that sound? It's so funny," she said. Her mother laughed and said, "Roosters greet the morning sun and wake everyone up." Clara found this rooster's duty very cute. One day, Clara went to the village bakery with her mother. The smell of freshly baked bread filled the entire village. When Clara saw the wood burning inside the oven, she curiously asked, "Mom, don't machines make the bread here? Why are they baking it with wood?" Her mother said, "Everything here is natural and done the old-fashioned way, Clara. This is how bread tastes the best." As Clara tasted the warm bread, she realized it was much tastier than the bread she ate in the city. Every day in the countryside, Clara learned something new. One day, while watching a neighbor lady working with a hoe in the garden, she asked, "Mom, what is that lady doing?" Her mother said, "She's planting crops, Clara. Here, people grow their own food." Clara learned that the vegetables they bought from the markets in the city were actually gifts from the soil. The people in the village were very kind to Clara, too. Every day, a neighbor would show her something new. One day, they taught her how to milk cows, and another day, they showed her how to pick fruit from the garden. As Clara saw how everyone in the village helped each other, she began to understand the differences between the city and the countryside more clearly. "Mom, we barely know our neighbors in the city, but here everyone knows each other," she said. Her mother replied, "Yes, Clara, in the village, everyone is like family. They all help each other." As the holiday came to an end, Clara thought about everything she had learned in the village. She had learned how to light the stove, fed the chickens, and understood how difficult but rewarding it was to grow vegetables in the garden. But the thing she loved most about the countryside was waking up every morning to the sounds of nature. "Mom, life in the countryside is so different but so beautiful," she said. Her mother smiled and said, "I'm glad you learned that, Clara. Now when we return to the city, you can tell your friends all about what you learned here." As Clara left the village, a voice inside her said, "We'll come back to the village for the next holiday." Because now, the countryside wasn't just a vacation spot for her. It was a world full of new discoveries and adventures. And so ends the story of Clara's adventure in the countryside. But the village always held a special place in Clara's heart. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the videos.